Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Welcome. I'm Josh.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are the Hiking Fools, guiding you through the trails of Glacier National Park. And today, I think we've said it before, but this is one of our absolute favorite hikes. We're talking about the Gunsight Pass Trail. Now, this is a terrific traverse, and you can do it in a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of offshoots from it, but we're going to describe east to west. And so you will be leaving from one point on the Going to the Sun Road in the eastern part of the park near the St. Mary Valley, and you will be traversing up and over all the way down to Lake McDonald on the west side of the park inside the west entrance. So Gunsight Pass is a big undertaking. You know, it's about a 20-mile day, and there are ways to do it to break it up. You know, you can stop and people backpack it because there's some terrific, sights to see and places to be along the way. But today we're calling it a day hike, and it's wonderful. Sarah, I know when you've been asked, you say, what's the top of the list? It's so hard, but what's the top of the list in Glacier for hikes? I've heard you say this one.
Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites. There's something special about entering one valley and going through another and exiting at another. It's pretty incredible. You go on one drainage into another drainage into another drainage, and the scenery never disappoints. It's absolutely incredible. Love this hike.
For sure. And we've said it before, and this is another case of it. Like, you can see so much of Glacier National Park and so much of what it has to offer on this one hike. So if you're feeling good, if you think you can handle 20 miles in a day, then this is the hike. This is where you should start. If you're here and you just want to see, the best of the best, Gunsight Pass is awesome. It's difficult, as mentioned, the mileage. Also, over the course of that, you gain up over 3,000 feet. And this is an interesting one. You lose even more along the way because you're starting, at one point on the road and you're ending at another, and your elevations of those 2 points are different. I mean, Lake McDonald sits about 3,300 feet, and I believe the point at Jackson Glacier Overlook is something like 5,200.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because, 20 miles in the mountains are completely different than if you're going to go 20-mile walk on a level area. You're hiking in the mountains, there's elevation gain and loss. You're definitely going to be tired and fatigued, and you're going to be, if you're doing this, July, August, which is when we recommend because of snowfields, you're going to have plenty of daylight, which is good, but you want to start early because you might be winded quicker than what you think.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, a lot of these hikes, you got to start early because you just never know. It's always great to bring a headlamp just in case. But, early July, end of July, you've got a ton of daylight. Here in Montana, it's up to like 16 hours of daylight. So you should be able to complete that. And just a reminder, when you're hiking, this is a little more difficult, but Sarah and I like to plan for at least half the time of the mileage in hours. So, for example, we expect this hike to take about 10 hours. And that's going, we're not the slowest and we're not the fastest, but it's a good rule of thumb to say about half the mileage in hours is what it takes to hike this. So definitely plan. And that means, if you start 6:37 in the morning, you're ending around dinner time. And depending how much you want to stop and see this and explore a little bit off of the main trail. It's a perfect one for all of that. Gunsight Pass, some of the highest points you reach actually at Lincoln Pass is about 7,000 feet. So you're going from like 5,000 to generalize it. You're going from like 5,000 feet to 7,000 feet down to 3,000 feet and up and down in between.
So let's get you there. Where is the trailhead located? It's on the Going to the Sun Road on the east side of the divide, kind of near the St. Mary area there. And you are starting at the Jackson Glacier Overlook. And you will see a trailhead sign, and immediately your trail descends. And if you're not careful, you will miss it. So,
like me, I mean, I don't know how many times we've hiked this trail for various reasons, for various destinations, and I miss it every time.
Well, we get on the trail fine, but there's various little offshoots
Some
that
junctions.
go to different little parking areas in the same vicinity. So as soon as you drop down, look to your left and the trail bends in some brush that's pretty well hidden. And actually that is the classic of the first half of this trail, starting at the Going to the Sun Road, going all the way up to Gunsight Lake, is you are in waist to chest high vegetation, which is perfect bear habitat. You've got huckleberries galore. We've seen some of the biggest huckleberries in the park on the beginning of this trail. So you need to make sure that you're making a ton of noise, especially if you're starting early in the morning.
Yeah, right away. Yeah, thimbleberries too. The bushes with that huge leaf bending over the trail. If it's early in the morning too, depending on the night before, it can be very wet. So it's smart to sometimes start out in, even if it's a hot day, to start out in full clothing, rain pants. You don't want to get soaked right away. But in the morning with the mountain dew, you definitely may experience some wetness and, you don't want a lot of skin irritation. So wear the right thing when you're starting out. I love that you mentioned the trail. It's like an eddy in a sense that you could start at the road, and if you take the wrong little junction in the first, quarter mile, you come back to the road. And I've done that before. Are we here? No. But I left from the road, and minutes later, I'm on the road again, and I just have to backtrack a little. And on a 20-mile hike, not cool. So bring somebody like Sarah with you. Sarah, what else do we need to know?
Well, the trailhead, like I said, is located at Jackson Glacier Overlook. So it's just a few miles coming down from Logan Pass, coming down towards St. Mary Lake. And if you're coming in from the St. Mary entrance, it's about 13 or 14 miles. So you are dropping down, like I said, pretty quick, about 1,000 feet, very, very quickly in the first 2 miles or so. Once you're at the beautiful Deadwood Falls, which is one of our favorite places. We actually have some personal stories swimming in that after camping up at Gunsight Lake, and it was 90 degrees and we're hot. And it's right before you climb back up to the Going to the Sun Road, because obviously if you're dropping down and you come back this way, you have to come back up. So anyways, this is a beautiful, beautiful area on the Reynolds Creek the crystal clear waters and the turquoise and the beautiful colored stones, and it's just an amazing spot. So make sure you take the time to go off. It's kind of off trail, just like a couple seconds, and look down in that. But immediately after that, you cross a bridge where you encounter your first junction. So you want to stay to the right and cross the bridge. And right after the bridge is your first backcountry spot, and it's Reynolds Creek. And there's a couple sites there. This is all, you have to make your reservations ahead of time at all these backcountry sites. So don't think that you can just walk right up and do that. And then right after that is when you start climbing. And it's more of a moderate gain, I would say. It's not terrible. We've carried heavy backpacks on that. And it's about 6 miles up to the campground at Gunsight Lake. But while you're hiking up there, you get beautiful views of, you have St. Mary Lake down below on your left, where they've created these little wetland areas. We've seen moose down there. Up ahead when you're facing your destination, you can see Mount Jackson and the glacier.
You're just staring at massive Mount Jackson the whole way, pretty much, on this trail once it opens up. And yeah, Gunsight Lake is a terrific destination in itself. We've camped there a couple times. We have just hiked there and back, and it's a wonderful place to just set up camp if you're going overnight. But as Sarah mentioned, again, it takes reservations far ahead of time. That's a popular place to stay.
Yeah, and a lot of people just hike into Florence Falls too. That's about 9 miles round trip, and you will encounter that. That's another junction, off to the right. But you'll encounter that, and then, like I said, you'll start climbing, and you encounter more of a quieter version of St. Mary River. Normally when you see it, it's pretty wild and rushing. But this is kind of a quiet zone, so it's kind of a neat face of this water source.
All right, so we are getting there. We're approaching the pass now, Gunsight Pass. There's a few passes that we go over on this hike. And again, to be clear, as we're talking about this, there are some, out and back hikes, some falls to see, some cold plunge in the Red Rock. But this is a one-way hike that we're describing here, 20 miles from the east side to the west side of the park. And we have more to say about what you'll encounter and some of the great features of this hike. But we're going to take a short break. Stick with us. We've got another segment coming right up.
This is Don Bennett with Freedom Bank. Whether you're climbing up Apgar Lookout or strolling around Lake McDonald, you can check your balance, pay bills, or move money, all from your phone. That's right. We're the kind of bank that hikes with you, without slowing you down. Freedom Bank, personalized service, powerful tools, and a hometown heart. Proud sponsor of Hiking Fools with Josh and Sarah. Go explore. We've got your banking covered. Member FDIC.
Welcome back. We are the Hiking Fools discussing the Gunsight Pass Trail, and there's just so much to say. We've talked about getting there, starting out, what you'll see, getting up to the pass, but we're still, at this point, at Gunsight Lake, and there's a campground there and a couple of sites, Sarah.
Yeah, Gunsight Lake has about 6 campsites, backcountry sites, and there's 2 pit toilets there. So it's a good place to use the restroom if you need to. If you have to have a snack, make sure you do it in the food prep area. We don't want to interfere with all these backcountry campers. Go take a picture at the lake. It's so pristine and beautiful. And the cirque is just amazing with the geological features and the colors and stuff. But when you're ready to hit the trail again, you will cross a bridge, and this is where Gunsight Lake kind of exits out of this basin, and you will encounter yet another junction. So to the left goes to a little dead-end area to the glacier, and it's a little ways up. So
like a glacier viewpoint.
Yes, a glacier viewpoint, and that's actually spectacular. So if you're backcountry camping there, I would absolutely recommend that. We have encountered grizzly in that area, so be very bear aware. And
multiple times, yeah. In fact, we have a name for it, Jackson Bear, because we feel like we've seen that same one so many times. But there's a couple offshoots. Sarah said it. Across Gunsight Lake is just a rippled, crumpled rock face that's just beautiful colors, reflects in that lake. And hey, Sarah, you even swam in this lake. That takes a lot.
I wouldn't say swam, but I entered the water, dipped, and removed myself. But we did backcountry camp here once, and it was a great memory, and that's a story for another time.
Yeah,
maybe.
Okay, so we're headed up to the pass now. We're getting to Gunsight Pass.
Yes, and this section of the trail between the lake and the pass is very overgrown as well, and it has you're climbing on the edge of Mount Jackson, essentially. You're on the mountain and you're climbing up, and there's a ton of huckleberry patches in here. This is a great place for bear, and we've encountered bear even in this section too. So make sure you're very bear aware. But look at the views. I mean, not only are you being bear aware, but I want you to look out and look down at Gunsight Lake, because the beautiful turquoise lake that this is, and then across the way on the flank of Gunsight Mountain, and the geology there is incredible. You will encounter a few waterfalls. You are climbing an elevation. What is our stat here, Josh?
Well, you're climbing over 1,500 feet in about 2 miles, so that's pretty steep.
Yeah, you're climbing the north side of Mount Jackson, like I said. So it's about 3 miles from the lake up to the pass, actually. Okay. Yeah, and the pass is at about 7,000 feet. And once you're at the pass, there is a little wind shelter. And when I say shelter, it's really just an old building that doesn't have a door, and you can walk in, because all the passes in the park tend to be pretty windy. It's a great place to see goats. We see goats here every time. And actually, right before the pass, one of the last times we hiked this, we looked down on a snowfield that was down in the drainage that drains down into Gunsight Lake, and we saw our first wolverine, and that was pretty incredible. I'm a huge fan of the book Wolverine Way by Doug Chadwick. So if you haven't read that, I would recommend that.
Nice.
So I've talked about the color of all these beautiful glacier carved lakes before, but the color comes from flowered silt, or some people call it glacier flour, which is a fine sediment of pulverized rock. And it's basically just suspended in that water. And when the sunlight hits these particles, it kind of scatters the light in a way that reflects, the blue and the green wavelengths, which are shorter wavelengths right back to us. So a lot of these lakes, they become even more spectacular in turquoise color when on a full sun day, and depending on the sediment is the shade of the turquoise that you get. So I just love this.
That's
area
great.
here.
Somebody like me just looks at it and says, wow. Although it does help to understand the science behind it. I think that's pretty neat.
Yeah. And if you are kind of a geology nerdo like me, you can, like I said, the edge of Gunsight Mountain there is one of the best places in the park, in my opinion, to see some of those old, the strata, the ancient stromatolites, the algae mounds along there. It's from the belt supergroup, and they're red, all that red argillite from the Grinnell Formation. It created all these ripples that were down lower, and when the mountain formed, got pushed up, and then the glaciers carved through there too. So I love this area here.
I can't
Can
tell.
I stay in the wind hut? I don't know.
It's hard to tell how much you love it. Yeah.
So once you're at Gunsight Pass, the trail drops down. So you go down into the basin of where Lake Ellen Wilson is. There is a backcountry site there too, and that has about 4 sites. Again, reserve ahead of time. As you're dropping down, this is a great place to see mountain goats. We've seen so many in this area. You'll cross a couple little natural waterfalls that are coming off of, Mount Jackson and Gunsight Mountain there, and it's so beautiful and pristine. I just want to mention too that this trail offers many spots to filter water. So one of your last spots is Sperry Chalet, so make sure you fill up there.
And we've talked about Sperry Chalet before. In fact, check out our other episode on Sperry, because there's so much to say about this little area in itself.
Yeah, and actually hikers call Lake Ellen Wilson the stone bathtub because it looks like a massive naturally formed stone basin surrounded by rocky cliffs. So when you're at Gunsight Pass, the trail descends steeply towards Lake Ellen Wilson for about a mile until you get to the junction of the campground. That's your 4th junction, so make sure you stay to the right, and you will head up towards Lincoln Pass. Take a look at those cliffs to your right. It's a great place to spot all the mountain goats. And obviously you have all those little critters too, like the marmots and the Columbian ground squirrels and stuff. But it's scattered with all these huge boulders. And you'll notice that the closer you get to Lincoln Pass and once you get up there. So you climb up. That's kind of a steep grade there.
Mm-hmm. I love those boulders. It's a really neat area, just monster rocks that you can either kind of walk over or at least see closely. And don't forget, Lincoln Peak is right off of this trail if you want to go up and snag a summit.
Yeah, from Lake Ellen Wilson Campground to Lincoln Pass is about 2 miles, and it's around 1,000 feet of elevation gain. So you're kind of going up and then down and then up again before you ultimately descend the rest of the way to the end of the hike. But Lincoln Pass, it's a home of a major boulder field, and it's from intense glacial action. So when we walk through there, I almost feel like, I don't know if any of you guys have ever hiked in Colorado, but the big giant granite boulders, like that's what it resembles to me. Obviously they're not, but
or if any of you have ever been on the moon, it seems like it would be similar to this.
Anyways, every section of the hike is so incredible. As Josh mentioned, when you come to your highest point at Lincoln Pass, you can scoot up and climb Lincoln Peak. If you got gas in the tank, it doesn't take a whole lot. It's a little steep, but it's over quickly. There's nothing technical. There's a little climber's trail there. And you can look down at the Sperry Chalet basin there. Once you're at Lincoln Pass, you're 12 miles from the trailhead, and mile 13 is Sperry Campground, which is below the pass, and it's all downhill from here, 13 and a half miles to the chalet from the trailhead.
Think of it this way. It's split into thirds, 6 miles-ish to Gunsight Lake, another 6.5 to Sperry Chalet, and another 6.5 down to Lake McDonald. So you can sort of set your waypoints here.
And as Josh mentioned, we did do a segment on Sperry Chalet, so check that out. And we go a little bit into detail about the chalet. Stop in there, get a refreshment, use the restroom, in their pit toilets there. And then it's all downhill from here.
It is all down. It's a difficult trail because it's so down. I mean, you're tired. It's almost harder going down sometimes on the body. But the Sperry Trail descends. We've had some great adventures on there. I feel like we've mentioned it so many times, but it's the truth. Remember that couple coming up back toward us, and a grizzly bear was coming up the trail and they had to stay away a little bit. And then the other time where we heard the growl. We've seen plenty of grizzly bears, but it's very interesting to see or to hear them without seeing them.
Yeah, it's kind of a dusty trail, and it's exposed from the fire that went through there that burned the chalet at one point. So make sure you bring all of the equipment accordingly.
And somewhere around the end of the hike, a few miles from the end, everyone starts talking about food and thinking about food. Last time we did this, we stopped at Three Forks Grill in Columbia Falls on Nucleus Ave there, and it's just got a warm atmosphere. It's great music, an eclectic mix of music. They've got that Blackfoot River IPA that I love. Their burger was good. The pasta was good. Next time we're going to explore the menu a little bit further, and they've just got high-quality food. The majority of the menu is sourced from local farms, and it's a great place there, Three Forks Grill in Columbia Falls. But we're coming to the end of this hike, and you can Head out east to west, 20 miles, a couple of thousand, over 3,000 feet of elevation gain and loss. This is Gunsight Pass. Look more into it. Check out our Instagram page at Hiking Fools MT to see some great photos from this hike and our recent adventures. And tune in next time. Check out more episodes and remember to follow us on Spotify, YouTube, or Apple Podcasts. I'm Josh.
And I'm Sarah.
And we are the Hiking Fools, encouraging you to always go